Okay, I think we can start now. Adetunji, can you hear me? John, I think we can mute the music so we can just start off. Okay. Welcome everyone to the Fusion Tech Fest Hackathon workshop day 3. And this workshop is going to be very, very special. We're going to have Curtis Evans, who is the principal developer advocate at AWS with us, and we're having Velizwa Boya, who is a senior developer advocate at AWS. And I'm just going to give a brief intro into both of them. So I'm going to start from Velizwa. So Velizwa Boya is a senior developer advocate at Amazon Web Services. Velizwa's tech background includes software development, business and systems analysis, solutions architecture, and cloud engineering. Venezuela loves technology and its ability to transform lives. She uses her deep understanding of cloud and ability to communicate this understanding to inspire and lead developer communities who are embarking on their own cloud journeys. Venezuela is also passionate about mentoring the next generation of technical talent, and she also shares her experiences on this topic with other technology leaders whenever she gets an opportunity to do so. So yes, that's just a quick brief on Veliswa. So I'm just going to be going to um, Curtis. Okay. Um, yes. So Curtis has 20 years experience designing software solutions and enterprise architectures. He has extensive experience with operations, server administration, security, and database support. His specialties are in infrastructure management and administration, system software installation, configuration, and administration, delivering anywhere access to business data and resources, and also customization to make products simpler to use and easy to manage. So yes, I'll just be handing it over to Velizwa and Curtis now, and then we can officially kick off the workshop. So yes, Velizwa and Curtis, you have the floor.
Okay, so thank you very much. So maybe let's just, I think you've done, from my side anyway, you've done enough introduction. And I'll just maybe talk about why we decided to partner with you today. And then we'll jump into the two demos that we have, or the two walkthroughs that we have for you today. So I'm sure all of us have been hearing about generative AI and how it is taking the world by storm. And there may have been a lot of maybe doubt as to whether anyone wants to jump into it initially when we all heard about it. But we've been seeing a lot of conversations, and we've had a lot of conversations. And I think at this point, a lot of us are where we are saying, you know what, we don't want to get left behind. So what we're going to do is to learn the tools so that we can also participate in this, because it's not going anywhere. It is here. So when we got the opportunity as AWS to partner with you, GenZTechies and CodeSpace, for this hackathon and this entire event that you're hosting, it was very exciting for us, especially the fact that we can introduce generative AI to all those who are going to be building, and then discuss possibly building the solutions that we will be building using generative AI on AWS. Before I do my walkthrough on Amazon Bedrock, I don't know if, Curtis, you have anything you want to say?
Just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here to connect with you today. I am joining you from the United States, so it's morning my time, but again, just super thrilled to be here. I'm super excited to see you all on board, which lets me know that you guys get it. To the point Veliswa just made, generative AI is real. It's the future, and I think it's to the benefit of us all that we learn a little more about it, get a little better about it or with it every day, and really embrace it and understand the integral role it's going to play in our future. So again, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you very much, Curtis.
So I'm not going to share my screens. I'm not sure if there is actually a functionality to share my slides, but I'm just going to talk through what I wanted to walk all of us through today. We're going to do a walkthrough with some demos of Amazon Bedrock. I'll take you through that, and then Curtis will take you through Amazon Q later on. So I'm just going to do a quick talk through, and if there's anyone with any questions, maybe during this time, and if it's possible to share the questions in the, okay, so I can share the slides. I also have links that I can share later on for folks to go and read up. Is that better than me fiddling through PowerPoint? What's better, Afolabi? You think I should share my slides now?
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We also have the participants on YouTube, so if they have any comments, we'll just pass that along on the call.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do the screen share. You see it?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so I'll take you through how you can build and you can scale your generative AI applications with foundation models, which are the bedrock of, well, Amazon Bedrock that we have is the container for the foundation models that we have on AWS. So we'll walk through, I'm not going to cover a lot today because we just want to do an introduction. We're going to walk through why generative AI and what we've been hearing from all of you out there and what led to us actually building the services that we have. We'll do an overview of Amazon Bedrock, and then we'll look at key features that you maybe can just consider as you build. And then we'll look at how you can get started with Amazon Bedrock. So what we've been hearing everyone has been asking for is there are all these models that are out there that the Amazon's, the various model service providers have been making available. And people are asking, which models can I use to build my generative AI applications? And how quickly can I get started? And how can I make sure my data is secure and it's private? You today can go onto any platform and build generative AI enabled applications. But what we've always made possible as AWS is the security. We always talk about the fact that security is our job number one. And with that, you can build on AWS your generative AI applications. You get to build them effectively. You get to build them pretty fast, which probably you can do on any other platform. But on AWS, you get the added security as well that you will get. So it is why we then built Amazon Bedrock, because it answers that last question as well of how can I do this securely and privately as well. This is why we then introduced Amazon Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock is an easy way for you to build and to scale your generative AI applications with the foundation models that you will find on Amazon Bedrock. What you will get is you will get a choice of leading foundation models through a single API call. We're going to look at that later on. You also can customize your model. So you can have a model that exists already and you customize it, bring it on Amazon Bedrock, and then you can use that to do your generative AI, build your generative AI applications. You can do retrieval augmented generation, which we're going to talk about also later on. We will take a look at that because that's a part of generative AI in general that I tend to quite enjoy. The fact that you can bring your own data to generative AI, and with that, you get to have responses and retrievals that are more accurate and that are more relevant as well to your business or to whatever you are building. It uses your own data to do the retrieval and the responding. And what you also get with Amazon Bedrock, you get the security, the privacy, and then you get the safety as well. So with Amazon Bedrock, then you get a simplified choice. You have all the foundation models, and we're gonna take a look at the console as well. We'll look at the various models, how to do the selection of the one that best suits your use case. You can customize, you can integrate into the rest of what you have on AWS. That's another thing, because if you're building your generative AI applications, chances are you already have data and you already have other applications that reside on AWS. So if you now want to build your generative AI applications on AWS, you get to bring those applications close to where you already do everything else that's AWS related. And then you get the security and the governance that I talked about earlier on. So we have a broad choice of models, and these I want us to take a look at when we go onto the console. But just to name a few, as Amazon, we have some models that we've made available. There are a couple of partners that we've partnered with. So we take their models and we bring them onto Amazon Bedrock. Chances are you can go onto their platforms and you'll find the same models, but we bring them onto AWS so that we bring this closer to you to where you do your AWS workloads. So we've partnered with companies like Anthropic, Cohere, Meta, I'm sure sounds familiar to a lot of us on the call, Mistral AI, Stability AI, and a couple other ones. And then there's also an ability for you to evaluate, because when you first go onto Amazon Bedrock, it is very easy to be overwhelmed. I know I was, and I think when you start to build your applications, especially during the course of this hackathon or this event that you have, it can be quite overwhelming to decide which one are you going to choose and how. And there is a functionality on Bedrock where you can do the evaluation and then choose the best one that suits your use case. And now talking about knowledge bases, which I mentioned earlier on, is how you can bring your own data to generative AI. With knowledge bases, you can take data that already resides. Let's say it's an S3 bucket. An S3 bucket is where you store objects in the cloud on AWS. So you have all these documents that are already there. Those documents can be in a form of a PDF, could be a CSV, could be HTMLs. You have them, and you then connect them to knowledge bases in Amazon Bedrock. What then happens is when you do the invocation of a model, so whatever model you have chosen, you do the invocation of that model, you then also get retrieval to this data source that is yours, that has data that is relevant to your business. And I think that is the beauty of knowledge bases.
Valiswa, if I may briefly interrupt with apologies, double check to make sure your slides are advancing. I'm not sure if they are advancing in the display.
They're not. Let me just see. Let me see if they are.
Yeah, they're not advancing.
They are not advancing. Oh, okay. Anyway, let me switch out and go to the console. I am almost done with the slides. Let me switch out and go to the console so that we can look at these features there, and then we'll look at how you can invoke a model. We'll look at that, doing that on the console, and look at how you can do that using code. Let me get off the slides anyway. I think we have a lot more value just looking at the console with everything else. Okay. Okay, are we seeing it?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, do I need to make this bigger? Is this fine? Is the size okay for everyone?
Yeah. The size is okay. We can see it.
Okay. So here we're going to look at only a few features of Amazon Bedrock. And just to get us started, I'm going to focus on how you can start testing with on the playgrounds. And we'll look at the few models that we have on Bedrock. And then we're also going to look at the knowledge bases and how you can quickly test, maybe how you can test chatting with a document using knowledge bases. But I'm going to start looking at the playground. Looking at the models that we have on Bedrock. So we've got a few, and I've just clicked on under foundation models, I've just clicked on base models. We have a few that we have here, and depending on your use case, you can actually decide which model you want to go for. We have models that help you with generation for chat, for text and image. And when we go onto the playground, we'll see how you can actually interact with a few of these, whether you just want to generate a quick picture or you want to generate a quick text or do a quick chat. We'll look at this. So if you go to base models, you see what models we have on Amazon Bedrock. And going on to the playground now, just to start testing a few of these. Let's say you just want to test out if you can have a model and have it do a chat for you. When you come onto the chat playground, we already have a couple of examples for you to help you get started. So you can decide what your use case is and click on that and then see what you get. But I want to go and test out the image. That's the one we're actually going to play with today and see if we can generate a few images on the playground before we jump over to look at some code. The other playground that we have is some text. And this, again, just using a prompt, saying what you want. You can just type your prompt and then see what you actually get, what the model gets back, gives back to you. And then looking at the image, we've got 2 models right now on Amazon Bedrock that will help you generate images for you. We've got one from Stability AI that we looked at before. We were looking at all the lists of models that we have. And we have Titan Image Generator G1. This one is an Amazon model that we have. What I've found when I play with both of these is the Amazon Titan, I get to get images that look very close to looking very realistic. And so depending on what the kind of image you want to generate, you can then decide. And that's what I've liked. What I've always found with the Stability AI one is that for me anyway, when I do play with my prompts, is that I get images that look very cartoonish. So it can depend on what you want. That's how you decide on the model that you're going to go for. So I have chosen, I've clicked on the Titan Image Generator model, and I've chosen that I'm going to use this and I'm going to try and generate an image. And this is the part where if you are on the call and you're watching and you think of a prompt, something to say, you can tell me and I can type that here and we see what we actually get back. But as a start, I'm just going to type. Are you seeing everything that I'm typing as well, right?
Yes, we can see it.
You see the text, okay.
Yeah,
So
we can see
let
that.
me think. Okay, so I'm going to start about, I'll see what I'm going to get. A group of people coding together. It is also very important, the prompt as well, that you keep it very concise and very close to what you want, so that you can be as close as you want to be to the outcome that you are looking for. So I've typed a group of people coding together. I'm going to see what I get. If you want to, you can also adjust there are some configurations on the side that you can adjust as well. But I'm going to leave those for now to the defaults that are there. So I've just tapped my prompt and I'm going to run it and see what image actually comes back. And I can say if it was close to actually what I had in mind when I actually went for this. It can take some time. While I wait, is there anyone who's got an idea of a prompt that I can type in?
Yes, someone has
Uh-huh.
already commented. So they said
Okay.
a soccer player playing football on a field. So a soccer
Okay.
player on a field.
Okay. Let me.
Yeah.
Is it in the chat? A
Yeah, the
soccer player
YouTube chat.
in a field. Okay. Cool. 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 Oh, so these are the suggestions that came back. So what you could do, you could decide that that one is closest to what you want. These two are not. And you could just click on it, and now you can generate variations of that and see what else you get that is closest to that. So let's see if we get any variations of that same image. So now it then takes it and it has it as a reference image over there. And then I'll do that soccer player, and then we'll just look at a very simple code on how to invoke a model in Bedrock. Are there any questions while we wait?
No, I think everybody is just paying attention
No,
on the
okay.
YouTube chat. Yeah.
Okay. Let me grab that text. Is it text that's typed here? So I must I just type soccer player on a field? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. And also, while we wait, the folks that are watching, are they, without giving away what you're going to build, maybe just say yes or no. Do you have an idea yet of what you're going to build using generative AI on AWS as part of this event? So they can just let us know in the chat, yes or no, if there are any ideas of what they want to build. So I selected the image that was in the middle, this one, and I said I want a variation of that. So it went back to do a generation, and it came back with photos or images that are not photos, images that are quite close to the one that I said I want to use as a reference. So you can see this is how you can play around. So the whole idea is that with the playground is that you play around until you get close to being happy with what you're seeing, and then you can just copy the API, and then you can then insert that in the API call, insert that into your application, and that's how you then, from your application, you can then include generative AI. So let's do the soccer player, and then we're going to look at knowledge bases.
Yeah. Also, we have 2 people that said yes on the chats.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have ideas already.
Great. Okay, I typed a soccer player, then I want to see what we actually go back. We come back. We get back. Also, while we wait, I know we're going to look at knowledge bases, but there's another feature that I think it's worth also highlighting today: guardrails. Because what we've been seeing out there is that because people can build anything now with generative AI, it's starting to be quite unsafe. Some of what we're seeing, people building applications that are not safe. So using guardrails, you can actually specify. That means then the guardrail that you define there will be included in the applications that you build, or the generation of the models to say, these are the words I don't want the application to come back with, or these are the kind of images I don't want to have generated. With a watermark detection, the watermark detection only works right now for images that have been generated using the Titan image generator GI. Because sometimes people are putting images out there pretending that those are real when they are not real. So with the watermark detection, when you generate an image using this model, we put the watermark on it. So then if you see an image out there and it was generated using this image, you can put it through the watermark detection and it will tell you if that's actually a real image or it was generated using this. I know right now it doesn't sound like you can do much with it because it's just focusing on models that were generated using this model. But over time, I think it can get to a part where you can actually use it for a lot more than that. But that's the idea and the thinking behind it. So it doesn't like that. So let's see a soccer player on a field. Let's start again because it doesn't like my prompt. So, but I think it could be with the timeouts that are because I've been on the screen for quite some time now. So let's see. If this does not work, I'll jump off to, I still is not happy. I'm gonna jump across to knowledge bases while I try and think what this is in the interest of time. So it's still not happy. Let's go and look at knowledge bases so long. So with knowledge bases, so I said earlier on that what's great with knowledge bases or retrieval augmented generation is that you can bring your own data to generative AI. So think of use cases like you want to build an educational app. I've seen it being used a lot with folks who, let's say you want to build an app for a museum. You want to help people navigate easily. TripAdvisor kind of apps, very much of educational apps, folks are using knowledge bases for. because you have, so apps like, at most places where we work, there's all this documentation that is done on processes and procedures. But this documents get written and then someone put them over there, you never get to look at them again. You're a new hire, you're figuring out how things work here, and there's no one to help you, and you can't access documents. Meanwhile, there is a wealth of documentation that exists over there. So what if now you could take all of those documents and actually make use of them? You take all those PDFs, all those documents, upload them onto an S3 bucket on AWS, which is object storage on AWS, then connect that to knowledge bases in Amazon Bedrock, and you can start engaging and interacting with that. So there are two, we've just introduced a new feature, which is chat with your document. The knowledge bases this is what was there until we introduced the chat with your document. When people ask what's the difference between the two, the main thing that is a difference that I see between them, with the knowledge bases, you can use this for vast amounts of data that you have. So you have a lot of documents. So you will store them onto a vector database, and then you can start doing retrievals from them that way. With a chat with your document, you're not uploading them or storing them onto a vector database. You're just chatting with a document directly as is. What I see as a use case for this is you could use a chat with your document to first test out the functionality and see if it's going to work for you. Maybe you're testing it out with only just one PDF file. And once you're happy with the setup, then you want to scale it. You can move it across to knowledge bases, and now you've got a more scalable application that you have. So I have a very lightweight application that I've built on both knowledge bases and with chat with the documents, and we look at those two on here today. So with the knowledge bases that existed before, you need to create a vector database. So we're going to create a knowledge base here, and then we can just run through it. Maybe let me look at one that I already have created just to save you all time. Let's look at this one. Look at what this looks at. Yeah, this is a web crawler. So we also have also recently introduced a functionality where you don't have to always have these documents only in your S3. You can just point to a URL of a site that you want to read, and then that can be your data source. But this is not the one that I want to use today. Maybe let me use that. So let me look at it. Okay, so when you first create it, you're going to be defining a couple of things. You're going to define the data source. You're going to also give it a name, define the data source. The data source could be on the web, or it's an S3 bucket document that you are reading. And you're going to define a couple of things, and then you will also define a vector database where you're going to store the information in your document as vectors, which makes it easy for the computer to read and process them because it's stored in a language that computers can now understand. So that's what you're doing. Once you've done all of that, you then will sync. You do a sync, and then you can start to test it out this side as well, if then you want to go and test it. So that's the normal knowledge bases where you're dealing with vast amounts of data, but there's also the chat with your document. Let me look at that. And then with this one, because you're not storing anything to a vector database first, you just define the model that you are going to be using for your retrieval and your generation. And you will then say whether your data is stored in your computer. So are we looking at a document that's stored in your local device, or are we looking at a document that's stored in the S3? If it's in your S3, you will then choose it from your S3, and same with your document as well. And then the guardrails that we looked at, you can also define guardrails for this if that's what you want to do. There's no syncing that has to happen here. And that's why I said earlier on that with a lot of folks, they use this as a way of testing, first testing out, maybe as just as a POC before they go and do the full-on build on knowledge bases. So I am going to use a document that I have before. So those of us on the call, it was almost like a what pop culture thing earlier on. I don't know if it's suitable for everyone on the call, but there was all this conversation when Beyonce came out with that Jolene song of hers. There was the is who sang it best kind of a conversation. Is it really is it Beyonce, or who actually came out with a song first before she did? I know, and I got caught up in it as well. So I went and I wrote an app using Chat with Your Document that downloads, because I then found out that no, she's not the first person to come out with this song. It was actually Dolly Parton from the 70s, and I realized that, oh, well, that's an idea of an educational app that I can build, because I don't know anything about music from the 70s. So I built this app with Chat with Your Document, where I download the music chart from the 70s, and then I interrogate it, ask it all kinds of questions, and then see what I get back. So that's what we're going to look at today. That's the demo that we're going to look at for knowledge bases. I've just clicked on the S3 bucket that has this document, and then it's given me a list of the documents in it, and I'm choosing the document that I'm going to engage with. And so that is all you do. And I'm just going to select the model that I'm going to use. I'm using right now all that's available for this functionality. The only model that you can use for now is Claude 3 Sonnet. But when we look at the list of models, you see there are lots of models there. So that's the one. I've selected my model. It's even giving me a prompt template if I wanted to, but I'm not going to use that. I've got my data. I've pointed to the S3. I'm not defining guardrails. I've got my document. I know I'm actually even very embarrassed to say this. I'm sure a lot of you on this call, the 70s aren't even a thing. But if you think you have an idea of maybe whatever music came out during that time and you have a question, you can just ask. And then I'll type it as a message, yes, see what we actually get back as a response there. So I'm going to ask the first one, and then we're going to see what we get back. So now it's doing the retrieval against that document that I pointed to. I said that with RAG, retrieval augmented generation, it is doing retrieval against your own data source. So it's doing a retrieval against that. So if we were to go and look at this document, you will see that Dolly Parton is not in that list because she never actually made the top charts. Although the song is from that time, but she didn't make the top charts. And this document is only those who made the top charts. So I am going to ask the next question. I'm asking now who was in the top 10 the most, and then see if I'm actually going to get any feedback. So I could have also worded this like which song was in the top 10 the most, or which band was in the top 10 the most. So you try a different prompts and you see what you actually get back. So it has gone to look at the document that I pointed to, the song list that I pointed it to, and it came back. This time it came back with a couple of responses. So if you are not close enough to read it, it's saying based on the list of top songs, and that song list has got the top 100 from the 70s. It's saying based on the list of top songs from the 1970s, the artists with the most songs in the top 10 are Queen and all the other ones that I'm sure none of you on this call know about. But yeah, that is me like telling my age here, but yeah. So if you then go and do show source details, it's when you upload your documents, they get broken up into chunks. Chunks make sure that your data is broken up into bits that are going to be easier to process. So it's different chunks that you will have. It was a long document, it just got broken up into chunks. So if you want to get more information on it, you can even go and say source details, and source details is going to bring me back to the chunks. Then I can see where it actually found the information that I asked. So that is that on knowledge bases. And I think we've done a walkthrough of things in the playground. And now I'm going to look at a very quick Lambda function that I wrote that is just doing invoking a model, and if the invocation works, all it's doing is printing out hello. I just want us to crawl through it and then just see the few lines of code that is all it takes for you to actually get going. That's the whole idea of what we're going to be looking at with this. And it's in Python. That is the language I'm familiar with, that I write a lot of my code in. So that's what we're going to crawl through. I could have had this in my IDE. So you can have this in your IDE of choice, but I chose to run it from AWS in Lambda. So that was just my choice. I could have had it in my IDE outside of here. So there's a few things that I'm just setting up before I get started. But when we look here, there are a couple of runtimes that you then first make sure that you initiate before you can get started. For this one, this invocation that I'm going to be doing is just the Bedrock, just the agent runtime. That is all I am going to initiate here, and then I start my retrieval. So when you call the API, you just send a couple of parameters, and that's all I'm sending here. So this one is for a knowledge base. Just if the invocation, it then does a hello from Lambda. That's all it's doing, and that is the model I've chosen to go with. And see, very few parameters to actually get going. So I'm going to test it and see if the invocation works, and then you see what we get back. And that's that. Then I will hand over to Curtis to take us through Amazon Q. Are there any questions in the chat while I wait for this? Okay, so response is 200, so everything is
so
fine.
far,
And
no
then you just leave the
questions.
hello. That's all. So far, no questions. Okay, cool. So that was that on my side, and I'm going to hand over to Curtis, and then I think if there are any other questions later on, we can do that. Does that work?
Yeah. I think someone also
Okay.
asked, Borna has been singing since 1960. Maybe we should try it.
Should have. I should have. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, Valiswa.
Yeah, thank you, Valiswa. Well done. By the way, I'm a huge fan of 70s music. If anyone has ever heard of the band Earth, Wind, and Fire, they are absolutely one of my most favorites from the 70s. They're affirmation. Okay, well, great, you guys. So Valiswa just demonstrated to us a lot of features, and she did so with the kind of knowledge and skills that any good developer or builder needs in able to accomplish this. In just a relatively few minutes, she did a little bit of demoing of some code. She showed us some powerful capabilities with things like knowledge bases and how to build effective prompts to generate the right outputs using these large language models that are available in a product or service like Amazon Bedrock. And she only scratched the surface. There are multiple foundation models available in Bedrock. And then with additional capabilities like knowledge bases and agents and so many other features, there's a lot that could be done. And I brought that up on purpose because I think if nothing else, you probably got the sense that there's just so many of these new technologies and features that are surfacing now that it really starts to get harder for us to not feel overwhelmed and really starting to ask ourselves, what exactly is it that we need to learn in order to be able to build and develop and grow in this new generative AI powered society? Take some comfort in knowing that not everyone is not going to be able to possess all these skills. I myself am a testament to that. Afolabi did a wonderful job of telling you earlier what my background is. While I've done a lot of things in the past 20 years in IT, that also suggests that there's a lot of things that I haven't done simply because I was not in that space. But that's not a problem. What I do want to do, though, in this next portion of the demo here is to show you a tool that we can look at called Amazon Q Developer that can help us kind of close the gap or bridge the gap between those things that we can learn, improve our learning curve, and then help us to be as productive as possible, in the same fashion that Valisa just showed us there. So I'm going to jump into a screen share here real quick myself and just talk about some of the different capabilities that a product like Amazon Q Developer can provide for us as well. So let me make sure I can do a share of my screen. Okay. Are you all seeing a kind of an Earth-based background currently? My wallpaper?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
Yes,
I can see. Yeah.
Okay, perfectly. There's probably a little bit of network delay here from where I'm broadcasting to everyone, so I'll just kind of briefly pause here. You probably see an intro slide now talking about Amazon Q for developers.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, perfect. At any point, let me know if there's any questions that are being asked, or let me know if there are any issues with my slide transitions or anything like that. I want to make sure that everyone's is following along as I move here. So, and I have just a handful of slides, so we're not going to PowerPoint you to death before we go into the demo talking about some of Q's capabilities. So let's just level set with what Q is. It's basically a generative AI assistant that can help us all, builders, other IT professionals, systems admins, with any sort of application development task that requires some sort of coding or configuration. Whether it's coding, whether it's testing, whether you want to perform things like application upgrades, or if you want to just fix some bugs, or even do some security scans to make sure that your code is safe. Amazon Q can do a lot of these. And the reason why it's able to do that is because it has these very advanced generative AI powered multi-step planning and research capabilities that can allow code to be transformed or new features to be implemented simply by way of just some interactions through the right interface. We'll go into that a little bit, but imagine what we just saw in Valisa's demonstration, where by way of natural prompts, she was able to input certain requests and generate outputs as a result. We'll effectively do the same thing here with Q Developer, but more from a traditional developer, productor, builder standpoint. So as I jump over here to the next slide, for context, I'll just talk briefly about how we've actually arrived at this point. So again, if you think about what's been going on for the past several years across the entire landscape of IT and cloud infrastructure and architecture, there's this continued race to adopt as much generative AI tooling that you can, that companies can do so, and they're accelerating this adoption at some very unprecedented rates. This particular graphic I'm showing here, this company, Gartner is basically a research and advisory company that does a lot of data collection, processing, and aggregating that data across all types of businesses and industry trends. And then once they have that data, they'll provide insights and charts and surveys and other research on those findings. Well, basically, Gartner has indicated that there's over 80% of enterprise companies today that will have used some sort of generative AI integration, some sort of generative AI model, or deployed some form of generative AI application in their production environments by the year 2026, which is just under 2 years now. And if you think about when you think about the question that was asked just a year ago and some of the responses, that was around 5%. So in this year's time, we've gone from 5% saying yes, they'll do it, to 80%. That's a huge year-over-year increase. And you know what that says, not only in the fact that it's talking about applications being deployed in production environments, that really does further speak to this urgency that they all have and feel that they need to move with to kind of remain competitive in this new era. Now here at Amazon, AI is used across a lot of areas and capabilities, not only in the AWS space, but in the traditional Amazon space as well too. We simply don't have enough time in this presentation to go into all of it, but just know that Amazon has been using AI in a lot of their products and services for a number of years. And throughout that use, we've always thought of generative AI as kind of this 3-layer stack of offerings that supports a lot of those use cases and needs at pretty much any stage of the development journey. Valise was already talked a little bit about Amazon Bedrock there, which is kind of in that middle layer. The bottom layer is a little bit out of the scope today. So let's just take a look at that top layer for a second. Applications that leverage LLMs and other foundation models. This is where you guys are going to find the tools that can empower you, whether you are a seasoned developer or a student newbie, to start using generative AI powered apps that's going to leverage foundation models. And if I may just say a statement about the Fusion Tech Fest's mission, which is, through my understanding, kind of a pioneering event that's designed to unite tech enthusiasts in order to push the boundaries of innovation and technologies, you need that kind of tooling. So for those of you that are participating in this event, I want you to give a service like Amazon Q a real look and think of it not only as a way that's going to actually be able to help you succeed in this hackathon, but think of it going forward as kind of foundation or a point of entry for you to become a lot more knowledgeable, a lot more experienced, so that you can eventually begin to explore the kinds of capabilities that you see down at that bottom level with GPUs and inference and very powerful development tools like SageMaker, and then become a lot more knowledgeable about some of the things that Valise was shared with you earlier in Amazon Bedrock. So we'll go on further to see how Q can not only help during the hackathon, but again, also becoming more productive in the future. One more Gartner report or study finding here, and I promise I won't give you any more. This particular one here speaks to the need to increase developer productivity. Increasing developer productivity is very prominent in industry today, especially when we talk about now that generative AI can in some ways level the playing field and really be a part of a developer experience, whether you're an independent or whether you do work for a large enterprise. But it really is not all about just the ability to write code faster. I mean, yeah, that's a huge benefit, but there's more to it than that. So this particular study here is indicating that about 73% of the time is spent on running and maintaining applications, while only 27% of that time is spent on the real benefit or the real need, which is to innovate and is to be able to transform. Way too much time running and managing, not enough time innovating. That's kind of the imbalance here. And I'll give you a quick example. Think about what happens anytime you go and discover an actual error in an application somewhere. Think about what has to happen to go into actually fixing that error. You've got to do what? Analyze and digest the metrics, figure out why the error even exists in the first place. Start working on a solution. And then you got to go into writing all the configuration changes. You got to do the updates. And then you have to deploy the fix into production. So again, that's where all of that 73% is being used up, taking away from the other things that we want to be able to get through. And by the time you do this for a couple of bug fixes in just a day's time, your day is pretty much shot. So we want to make sure that we can do everything we can to basically flip that equation. Let's spend 70 to 75% of that time being innovative and much less time having to just manage and run applications. All right, so Q. In a nutshell, you can ask a service like Amazon Q to explain program logic for coding or for your code, especially the stuff that you're not familiar with. And in part of the demo in a second, I'll demonstrate how that is capable. You can quickly identify and fix bugs. You can do things like generate functional tests. And then there's just a ton of other things like inline code completion. You can have an actual chat with the Q developer interface. And a benefit there is that it basically keeps you in that same environment. For those of us that develop and build today, sometimes we may be spending time in the command line interface. Sometimes we go into a browser where we have multiple tabs opened up, where we're doing Google searches. We're on python.org. We're in Stack Overflow. We're in all of these places where we're trying to find information. We can eventually find it, but again, it's not always the most productive way to find that information. So again, Q is a huge help in being able to kind of bring that entire experience into one view. I talked about chat a little bit. Yeah, with the chat feature, generating code, refactoring code, you can do code analysis. And what we'll also see is that oftentimes when Q Developer returns information to us, it'll give us some additional helpful information, even when we don't even ask for it sometimes, which is super helpful. So the long and short of it is a service like Amazon Q can do a lot. And it also supports a lot of languages. You've got languages like Java, Python, TypeScript, C# that are all supported in there. There's even some support for those of you that have a little bit of experience with Amazon Web Services. The way you can build resources and deploy applications within AWS in an automated fashion is by way of a managed service we have called CloudFormation. CloudFormation uses JSON and YAML. And I'll show you in an example here in a minute that even if we prompt Q Developer to help us build resources within AWS, it understands those languages and can produce some useful outputs for us as well. Last couple of slides here. So Q is not only transforming the way we do our work, it's also transforming where it's making itself available for us to get that work done. In other words, you can access Q not only in like the AWS Management Console. We'll do it extensively here in a minute using an IDE. You can also use it in other services like a service called Amazon QuickSight, which is a data insights and reporting engine that we have. We're even starting to put it on some of our websites. The next time you go out to an AWS website and you want to look up some documentation on CloudFormation or on Lambda that Felicia did earlier, you'll start to see like a little Q icon in the lower hand corner, just to let you know that it is now part of that whole documentation search capabilities to provide additional help. So yeah, again, Q does a ton. We've talked a little bit about the who and the what now. So let's start to get into some of the how. I'm going to pause my view here for a second as I make my way over into showing you some additional things that I want to show inside of an IDE. So now, in order for us to be able to take advantage of a service like Q and all of its features and capabilities, we're going to need two very important things here. We're going to need an IDE environment, and we're going to need an AWS Builder profile. And I'll talk about those a little more here. Here is my IDE. This is basically Microsoft Visual Studio Code that I'm going to be using today. So just wanted to give you a quick glance of that now. And then we'll go over Microsoft Visual Studio Code here a little more in depth. Basically, Visual Studio Code is where you're going to do all of the creation, the editing, and the managing of your code. It's going to keep all of those development resources in one place and basically make your life as a developer a whole heck of a lot easier. I do have a QR code that I want to share with you guys. Let me make sure I've got it here. For those of you that don't already have Microsoft Visual Studio Code available, I'm going to pause for about 7 seconds here for everybody. We're back on. Wonderful. Okay, great. Apologies for those of you that may have lost us momentarily. Hopefully you were up with us to the point where I was talking about having the need for Microsoft Visual Studio Code and a AWS Builder ID in order for us to start taking advantage of some of those Q Developer capabilities. Right now, I'm just sharing with you a QR code that you can use to go out to the site that's going to allow you to install Visual Studio Code on your desktop of choice. It supports all of the popular flavors: Windows, Mac, OS, Linux, etc. So that's Visual Studio Code. And for the interest of time, we won't actually go through the installations here, but just know that the instructions are pretty easy to follow, and you should have everything you need in order to get Visual Studio Code up and running at some point. While we're doing Visual Studio Code today, I do want you to know that Amazon Q Developer does support other popular IDEs. Again, I won't go through an exhaustive list, but for those of you that have some interest or maybe even some experience in working with another IDE like PyCharm, I want to also quickly share with you a QR code where you can go and build using PyCharm. This particular QR code here is for those of you that want to use the PyCharm IDE. There is a community edition that's free. So if you're doing, if you're just there to learn, if you want to get yourself more familiar with Q in that IDE environment, then definitely make sure you download a copy of the community edition so that you can be very effective in your work there. Again, I'll just pause for a few seconds here to make sure everyone can get that. Okay, perfect. All right, so we now have Visual Studio Code as one of the components that we need. The second of those components that we're going to need is what's known as an Amazon Builder Profile. A Builder Profile or a Builder ID is going to be that personal profile that you as a developer will need to access Q Developer, and in addition to giving you that integration and connection with Q Developer, the Builder ID will also have some other AWS benefits related to training and certification and things like that. It actually doesn't require that you have an AWS account. It'll just represent you as an individual as you start to take advantage of some of those training and certification offerings that I just mentioned, and always be able to authenticate yourself once you're starting to use a service like Q. So, you know, like other personal profiles, it will remain with you as you progress throughout your, you know, educational and learning and career goals. So a quick call to action here I will make as I bring up the a similar link. I would highly encourage everyone to follow this QR code to make sure that you go out there and quickly create yourself an AWS Builder ID. It's a very simple process. All you really need to provide is a valid email address and a password that you can use to always connect to it. Lisa talked about security being very important throughout all of the development and infrastructure landscape. There's even some MFA capability that you can use to do multi-factor authentication with a token or a virtual token on your mobile device. So I would highly encourage that when you set up your Builder profile that you also do so using multi-factor authentication. Okay, great. So we've got some understanding about having the need for a Builder profile. We have the need to have Visual Studio Code in our environment. Again, in the interest of time here, I don't want to go exhaustively into some of the setups that will need to be done. But basically what will ultimately happen is that when you've got Visual Studio Code and you want to integrate Q into it, as you can see where I'm going here in this tab, there are some extensions that you can go and access in an environment like Visual Studio Code to go and find those tools that you need. From this little extensions bar or icon right here in the search tab, in the explore tab, here you can see by way of just doing a search, you can go in here and find Amazon Q. It should result as one of the top searches once you find it. As you can see, I've already got it installed here, so no need for me to do an uninstall and reinstall, but just wanted to show you that this is your kind of point of entry on where you will be able to get to the Q extension here to be able to set it up for your environment. I think as I did my setup earlier, I had walked through a couple of snapshots here that I want to show you. So maybe I can show you just kind of a visual walkthrough to give you a better idea. So yeah, this is just a snap in time of what I just shared with you in real time. for those that may already have the Amazon Web Services toolkit, which most of you probably won't, know that all you'll have to do is just upgrade your toolkit in order to get to this point of being able to access Q as well. Once you've got Q loaded, you will go and follow the steps for doing the sign-on within Visual Studio Code. Make sure you select the free option here. You'll see once you start configuring Q in that environment that there's two options. There's one for primarily for individuals, which we're going to use for the sake of this hackathon, and then the other one is kind of a pro tier for AWS customers that use Q across the entire organization. Again, just focus on using the free option. You should be able to set yourself up and get installed in no time. And then from there, you'll go through a series of just kind of integrations between getting Q started, having it associate with your AWS Builder ID. And then at some point, you'll ultimately confirm that a code that the Builder profile login is confirming with the IDE here. I kind of blurred them out just to for security purposes, but you'll see just like a small 6 or 7 alphanumeric character there to authenticate the two. You press confirm and continue, and then you should be good to go in your environment. So again, just kind of the long and short of how I've gotten us up to this point here already. So why don't I get myself back into some of the things that we want to do here for the sake of a few demonstrations here. One of the things you want to be able to leverage Q for as far as benefits are concerned early on is just the ability to go out there and say, help me understand and learn code a lot better. And what I mean by that is Q comes with this feature that's called, it's basically an explain feature. And what an explain will actually do is just that. It'll go out there and tell me what a piece of code looks like. Here you see I'm in my environment. Hopefully everybody can see this okay. I have a piece of program here. It's a JavaScript program. And imagine you were coming into an organization or a group and you wanted to help everybody out, but you didn't know what the code was. With Q Developer's capabilities, you can actually come in here. You can do a select all on that program that you have in here. From here, I can do a right click. I'll go down to my Amazon Q selection here that's part of this feature. And then I can just simply ask it, explain to me what this is. And in the same way that you would interact with a large language model by way of a prompt, because quite frankly, what is happening behind the scenes, once we've done that Q connection integration, we're now allowing our environment and our information to be passed into a large language model prompt to go and ask us for some information. So what I went and did to the right-hand side is now being executed for me on the left-hand side here with the Q agent. And what it's saying is explain this code for me. So it grabs that code, basically puts it in as an input prompt, and then I'm returned with some information about the selected code block is responsible for fetching some AWS credentials from an environment variable. It's giving me some information about how it's going out and accessing a Bedrock runtime client, and basically just giving me the information that I need so that I now better understand what some of that code out there is and how I can leverage it. So, amazingly powerful feature here that's given me a lot. I want to just pause a quick question here for a quick second here. I know I've kind of quickly walked you through some of the setup and configuration stages just to get you to this point. And now that we're actually inside of an IDE environment where all of our coding is happening, everything we want to do, just wanted to pause real quick. Afolabi, are there any questions anyone's asking up to this point?
Yeah, so I dropped them in the comments box. So someone asked if they will be able to use Bedrock and Q Developer for free in this hackathon.
They can if you have access to an AWS account. Well, you'll be able to leverage the Bedrock service. everything I'm demonstrating right now is basically local to my programming environment. I have a piece of program that can be used with Q, but I'm not actually executing that program yet to go and connect to Q. If I were to let me think of it this way. If I were to have a scenario where I wanted to use some programming by way of an API to be able to connect to Amazon Bedrock, that is where the requirement or the need for having access to an AWS account would come in. In other words, because Bedrock is available in an AWS account as a service, I would need access to the account. I would need the right privileges to be authorized to go and access the Q service, or excuse me, the Bedrock service. So that's where the need for having the AWS account comes into play, because you'll also have to need your user ID, secret key, password key, session token, all the other credentials that you're going to need in order for this environment to be able to go and connect to an Amazon environment. I am going to show you, we talked about CloudFormation earlier as being one of the languages that Q understands and can actually go out and help you with. I'm actually going to demonstrate for you in a minute how I can bring some CloudFormation code that I create here in my IDE, and then with connection to my AWS account, be able to go out there and actually execute and run it. So long way to say, yes, you can use Q and Bedrock for the hackathon, provided you have access to an AWS account where Bedrock is available. Any other questions?
None for now.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. So we now just have seen how the explain option works within Q Developer. Again, it's not only is it giving us kind of a very detailed breakdown of what some of the code components are within this program here. I'm trying to see if this particular one has shown us any additional links. It's probably not doing any additional links for this particular piece of code, but I think I do have some examples of where you can go and get some additional information. Yeah, I'll do one here. Some of these I've pre-run already. Again, in the interest of time, I didn't want us to have to go and provide the input prompts, have the Q service go over and fetch the information from the large language models that are working in the background to provide the additional information for us. But rest assured that if you were to go out and input prompt information like this in a matter of 30 to 45 seconds or so, depending upon how much time is actually needed, you would get some return values. In fact, why don't I actually just maybe try that in real time? Something I don't always advise about, but let's give it a try anyway. So we're going to go ahead and in real time ask Q to write us a Python program that will take a file and upload the file to an S3 bucket. For those that may not be aware, S3 is our Amazon simple storage service, where basically you are allowed to store untold amounts, terabytes, petabytes, exabytes worth of data in the cloud in a resource known as an S3 bucket. So I'm basically asking Q for help to produce for me some code that will actually use Python, the Boto 3 modules, and everything else that's necessary in order to go and work with a service like S3. So again, just want to quickly demonstrate the capabilities of what it will do. So now it's giving us some instructions on the type of Python program that'll actually be able to go out there and perform this kind of work. So we have a nice piece of code. I will caution that every now and then, the code that you are provided with, it's not just a matter of a simple cut and paste of that code over into the IDE, connect it with your Python interpreter or whatever programming language of choice that you're running with, and be able to do it. Every now and then you will have to make some tweaks, but this particular one here is usually pretty sound. The reason why I'm showing this particular example though is that while my prompt asked about things like Python programming, S3 buckets, and being able to work with it. The thing I appreciate most is that at the end of my response, Q provided for me some additional links to some documentation that I can go out there and look at. So again, I talked about how most of the time today we spend ourselves navigating between several tabs and locations to go and find information. Here is a great example of exactly what it means to have all of that consolidated into a single environment, which I think is a wonderful option to have here. What I want to do now, though, is we talked about CloudFormation also. So yeah, most of your popular programming languages like Python, like Java, like TypeScript that I mentioned earlier is all going to be supported. I want to share with you an example of something that may not be as familiar to most of you, which is, like I said, JSON and YAML, which is used as part of our CloudFormation service. Also want to quickly introduce to you. So what I'm going to do with this is, as you can see, we're going to ask to have a CloudFormation template created to build ourselves a network VPC. And just so everyone is aware, if you've never worked with network VPCs, VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. And basically what it is it's, we like to dub it as the data center in the cloud, meaning that when you go out and build a virtual private cloud for an application or a solution that you're developing, you're basically creating by way of virtualization, by way of software-defined network programming, a virtual network environment where you can define some of those resources that most of us are familiar with common networking. We're talking about routes. We're talking about IP addresses. We're talking about public and private subnets. We're talking about gateway resources. Basically, all those things you need to kind of simulate or produce what we're seeing here in this kind of simple example. This is basically showing like a very simple two-tiered application where you've got a web server there on the left-hand side of the screen located in the public subnet. And on the right-hand side, you've got a database server that exists in the private subnet. Imagine an application where, I don't know, you could be going out and ordering some movie tickets to go and watch a film on a weekend. You log in to the interface through a mobile app or through your desktop PC. You're connected to the website. You get an idea of all the different movies and showtimes and pricings that are available. And then you want to go and make a purchase of your tickets online so that when you get to the theater, you basically scan your code or your ticket QR code and you're able to go in and enjoy the entertainment. This particular diagram may not be entirely indicative of that type of application, but it's pretty similar. The point is that we're now using cloud-based resources to go out there and create the kind of environment where, we want to be able to put those resources that are accessible and needed by the public onto the public side. And then we want to keep the private things like our databases, our billing, our customer information more secure that can't be accessed on the or by anyone from the outside, by keeping it private and internally in our environment. So this is very kind of common architecture for the type of applications that run in AWS. And for someone who's worked at AWS for 8 years now, I can remember having to go through and basically building all of these resources in the management console, pointing and clicking to say, create a VPC, create me a private subnet, create a public subnet, go launch an EC2 instance, give me a NAT gateway resource, on and on and on. It was all fun when I was just learning how to become more familiar with cloud because I was gaining knowledge as I was going. But now in a situation where you want to be more productive, you want to be able to build at scale. Now is the time where you want to be able to take advantage of more automation to be able to do these sort of things. So I made that transition from from pointing and clicking from the management console into doing things programmatically. I was using an IDE, but I didn't have a service like Q Developer at the time. So while I was more productive than what I was using the management console, I wasn't as productive as I can be now that we've got a service, basically a generative AI-based coding companion like Q that can do this sort of thing even better for me. So what I'll do now is that we basically want to take that diagram I just shared with you and see how fast or how effective a service like QDeveloper can help us create that. So again, I'm going to take this, I'm going to open up another chat window, and then I'm going to ask it to do just this. Create a CloudFormation template to create a network VPC. This should come back relatively fast, but if I need to just pivot back to grab the one that we've already got, I'll take advantage of that. But I think we're going to be good here. So I'll pause again to see if there's any additional questions while this code is being generated, and then we'll run with it from here.
Yeah, we have one question.
Sure.
QDeveloper is solo asking questions, or it can also do code suggestion like Copilot or Tab9.
Yes, it can do inline code suggestions as well. So if you've got a piece of code, well, let me go back to the JavaScript. If I were to, and I'll probably do this in a different chat window now that I've got my so my CloudFormation code request has come back. We'll go back to that in a minute. If I wanted to go and so earlier I did a highlight of this main.js JavaScript program, and I asked it to do an explain. This time, if I select all, I have an opportunity to now come back to my Q prompt, and I can ask it to refactor. I can ask it to optimize, or if there was an actual error going on in it, I could ask it to do a fix. So yeah, to answer your question, those capabilities are also available in Q to be able to do those other things. There are certain, based on whether or not you have the free tier or whether you have the enterprise, there are going to be some limits and restrictions on to what extent inline code suggestions are going to be available. There's also going to be some limits and restrictions on whether or not you have the free tier or whether or not you have the paid tier of exactly how many inline code suggestions you can do in a given month or in a given period. So I'll have a QR code that I can share with you in a little bit for you to scan also to get started on QDeveloper. So those answers will be there as well too. All right, let's go back. So the CloudFormation script has been produced for me. Notice, by the way, when I made the request to create a CloudFormation template, I didn't actually specify which language that I wanted it created in. Q actually decided that it was going to make YAML, which for those of you that may not know stands for yet another markup language, is going to be the default choice that it's going to do. So it took the liberty itself to choose which one it wanted to use. If I wanted to go back and re-ask this, I could say create a CloudFormation template using JSON to create a network VPC. So I'll just let that run and then go back to using and kind of illustrating to you the YAML example. And then when we come back in a second, we'll show you what the JSON version looks like. Very different syntax, but it does all the same thing all the well. So I created a CIDR block that I wanted to use, and I also asked it to create both a public and a private subnet. I'll take you back real quick here to the example I showed a second ago. The only thing I didn't ask the CloudFormation template or Q to do in the CloudFormation template was to create the web server and the database server. In the interest of time, I'm going to do just the virtual defined network in the cloud for us. I'm not going to actually do the compute resources, but know that Q could certainly do those just as well. Let me hop back here and see if here we have our JSON version. So we've got our YAML version of the script. We have a JSON version of the script. If you can notice, the syntax is looks different, but again, it's all designed to do the exact same things. So what I'll do now is now that I have a template of a program that I want to run and deploy, what I can go over here now and do is and notice too that Visual Studio Code actually allows me to bring a terminal session up into the window as well too, which is also a great feature. So I don't have to pivot over to a traditional iTerm or some other sort of Xterm application to go and access my terminal. I'm doing everything here in this environment. So I'll go to scripts, is it? And then JSON, or actually YAML. So I've got a YAML directory here. I'm going to, let me move this guy out of the way here. So I'll just leave this here as a backup file. So I'm going to go out here. I'm going to say code VPC network 1.yaml. So now what I'm doing is I want to create myself a new file and take the code input suggestions that I got from QDeveloper here. And I can either click insert at cursor or copy, either or. When I say insert at cursor, it's going to take all of that code that I asked it to generate a second ago, and it's going to put it into my file. I now have a file that's saved that I should be able to go out now and then using some additional commands and operations, go and actually connect to my AWS account and be able to set this up. If you guys will allow me, how are we doing on time, Afolabi? I probably
we're doing good. We're doing very good on time.
Okay, great. Because what I need to do now is, and I'm going to do this offline for the sake of just preserving some of my credential information. I'm now going to go and from my AWS account, I need to go and grab just a few essential credentials and configure them in my environment. But I do not want to share them with the the entirety of the world. So you guys will allow me just a minute. I'm going to move my screen off camera. Somebody thinks that's slick. Huh? All right. Wonderful. So my credentials have been added now. Let me clear the screen. Okay. So hopefully I should be able to come back on screen now. So I've got my terminal session connected with my AWS environment. So I should be able to go out there and run some commands. Just to quickly confirm, I'm just going to go and run a command that says, hey, AWS account, tell me if I have any S3 buckets listed out there. And yes, I do. As you can see, it actually went out there with an API call connected to my AWS environment. It says, yes, here's all the S3 buckets you have out there. So that's an indicator for me that my connectivity to my account is working. So what do I want to do next? I now want to take the CloudFormation template that I just created, and I want to run that command. So I'm going to paste a sample version here. I called my file VPC network -1.yaml. Let me just look over this command that I'm invoking here. So and I'll walk you through this real quick. Let me make it a little bigger here. So here's what I'm saying. I'm saying, okay, CloudFormation service. I want you to go out to one of my regions in AWS, which is the US East 2 region. That's a region based here in the United States. That's close to me. I want you to create a stack. I want you to name that stack I'll keep that here. Name my VPC stack VPC Network 1, the same as my file name, so that I'll know how to refer to it once I go over to AWS. And then the file I want you to pass to it is this file here. So I should be able to pop this. Oh, I got my error run. Let's see. Environment name must have values. Quickly troubleshoot and see what that is. Environment name must have values. That might be something related to the. Let me bring my interface back offline here for a second. I need to go back and just double check those values that I entered into my setup here. Sorry, give me just a sec. I'll bring this one offline. Maybe we can pause again real quick if there's any questions that you all may have had related to anything we've done up to this point. I'm just going back to double check that all of the environment variables that I entered a few screens ago are valid and are running. Let's see. This is key is good. Calling create stack. VPC network 1. Body. Oh, okay. I think I see what might have happened. Network 1 dot YAML name. Okay. Sorry, guys. Give me just a sec here. I think I might have fixed my issue here. Yeah, I think I might have put my region in the wrong location here. Let's run this and see. Okay. No. All right. I'm still getting an issue here with the environment configuration. I apologize for that. But what I can show you is that, actually, let me go back and run the one I did the other. No, that probably won't go. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to go back and figure out what the validation error is caused. But what I should be able to at least show is that over in the actual AWS account, let me go in and actually launch to the account now. And what I want to now show is, and again, I'll bring this online momentarily here. VPC create. Yeah, maybe I have one in the Ohio region or Northern California. Yeah, so basically what I'm looking for is a similar run of the actual VPC creation. I'm not seeing that either. I'll try to do this from a command line prompt to see if I can get a better result here. But yes, something is just tripping up with the environment variables that I created, and it's not allowing my run to go completely. So I'm going to try the same thing outside of a IDE here to see if this runs a little better. Let's do this. Sorry, again, apologize. I'm having to run this offline, but I want to make sure none of my credentials get exposed to an environment that I don't want it to get exposed to. Template body. Directory CD. All right, I'll try just one more example here. If it doesn't, we'll just move on. Okay, yeah. So apologies, everyone. I'll have to go back and figure out what the validation error with the create stack is causing with my error here. So, but at least I can say that Q did its part in terms of just being able to create some actual code that you could actually go out and validate and run. The only issue here really is I think just the way I'm running it in my environment. In fact, why don't I from the AWS cloud location here, I will bring you. Let's give that code a run from the GUI and see if we have some better luck here. So everything I was talking about as far as those parameters and areas and locations are located, I'm going to come into the actual AWS Management Console, and then let's see if I can't just create the stack from here. So in Cloud Formations, I'll go to Stack. I'll create a stack with new resources. I'll choose an existing template. I will upload it from a file. The file I'm going to choose was Kurt Evans scripts YAML VPC Network 1. I will open that. I'll choose next. I'll call this VPC Network 1. Oh, I see. It looks like a string in my code is actually looking for an environment. I'll just call it prod. Prod. Call it next. IAM role. I won't give it a sample role name. Say next. And let's see if we can trigger it from here. Okay. Okay, I think I see what happened. So the creation of my VPC is now in progress. I've done it all from the management console. What I was not aware of was in my, and this is one of I actually talked earlier. This is actually a good example because when I showed you the, I'm going to bring the IDE back in here. Earlier, when I mentioned that every now and then you'll have to go in and check to make sure that the code that's generated is what you need. I was not aware that this particular instance of the request that I made from Amazon Q wants me to put an environment name in there. And basically, it's an environment that will be prefixed to the resources. What that means is that if this VPC that I wanted to create was going to be used for production purposes or development purposes or Q&A, I would want to identify that environment for it so that it would call it VPC production or VPC Q&A or VPC non-prod. So yeah, that was an oversight on my part in terms of at least not looking at the code close enough to see that was the issue. Now we see here that the VPC creation is still in process or in progress. It's going out here. It's created the default public route. It's created the private route table. It's basically now creating all of those components that we had identified earlier in this diagram, so that momentarily it should go out here and okay, still creating. The create should complete here in a minute, and then we'll now have a VPC defined within our AWS environment that we can start leveraging for building resources and deploying an application. So again, apologies for the mix up there and not understanding this parameter had been created, but that's basically an illustration of, by way of prompt, asking for some code to be completed and then taking that code verbatim and then going out and building the resources that it wants for it. And that was just a AWS services example. You could do the same thing for a JavaScript web application. You can do the same thing for a Python Flask application. You can do something to do some interaction and integrations with Amazon Bedrock that Velisa showed for us earlier. So, kind of a long way to just show some of the power and capabilities of what a service like QDeveloper can do for you as you start to get builder. So I hope these are some helpful examples that you guys will be able to use and apply when using them for the hackathon. Okay, great. That's pretty much it for the demo. I'll pause here if there's any additional questions that they have. Here we see the VPC did finally complete, and we have all of our resources available. Any questions from anyone?
Okay. Yeah, I think someone has a question, but you already answered it during the demo. I think the only other question is for Bedrock. So can I ask that too?
Yes, you can ask that.
Okay. So the person asked from VS Code if they want to use the AWS Bedrock model, would they have to enable all the models and use the IAM account and also set up the AWS environment for their local testing on VS Code? So let me just repeat so that we can get it. So the person asked from their IDE, which is VS Code, if they want to use the AWS Bedrock model, would they have to enable all the models and also use the IAM accounts and then also set up AWS environments for local testing on their VS Code?
You don't have to enable all you only need to enable the model that you need to use. And the advice really is that you enable the model that you need to use as well. If you see with some of the models, usually we do that with the newer ones, when you actually go and ask to enable it, it will ask for the use case. It's really because, the best practice is that you don't enable everything. And then the other one was an IM question. I'm not very clear what that one is about. What was that other question about IM?
Okay, they were asking if they would use the IAM accounts, and they would also have to set up an AWS environment for local testing in their IDE. So I think they were asking if they would use the IAM account and also have to set up the AWS environment on their VS Code.
Okay. With the IM account, do they mean the AWS account?
Yeah. So yeah, maybe I can jump in and try to assist here. So with regards to access to Amazon Bedrock, yeah, you are going to have enough privileges defined through IAM for your account, for your role, for your access, in order to be able to leverage and use the models. In terms of using those same credentials inside of the IDE, you will need them only if you want to be able to communicate to Bedrock while you're building and developing your application. There's nothing wrong with toggling back and forth between using Bedrock in the AWS Management Console, or writing your code in the IDE. It's only when you want to be able to do kind of that real-time, very productive, very interactive switching between making code changes, changing some of the construct variables and values in your code that may do something differently with a Bedrock model to test it out, or to maybe make a quick switch. So yeah, it really depends on just how you feel you're going to be most productive in your environment. I'm going back to sharing now. Can everybody see my screen again?
Yeah, we can see your screen again.
Yeah, the question in terms of models that you want to use, what you can do here, to the point Valisa was just making a second ago, at the very bottom of the Amazon Bedrock dashboard, you have this model access setting. When you click on model access, you can come in here and say, modify my model access. And then you can go through and very selectively choose which particular models that you want to use for a given use case. So yes, you can do all or nothing, or you can do something in between. So you have some flexibility. Here you see that I have currently 13 of the 33 base models that are available in my account available for use. So if you go into coding, if you select a certain model using a model parameter ID and you're starting to get failures, one of the things you may want to do is come back here and check to see is, have I even made that model available for use, to see if that's my problem. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Curtis.
You bet.
Okay, so I think on the chat, I think everyone is aligned with the workshop. I mean, that was really amazing. About like 1 hour and 40 minutes of going through AWS Bedrock, the foundational models it enables, and also AWS Q Developer. How it can help you, your IDE, to generate code, write code, optimize code. So yeah, that's actually really amazing stuff. I think if we have more questions after the workshop, I would directly send that to Veliswa, and she can answer it from there. If there's anything she can also send it to you, Curtis, and then we can help the participants move along in the hackathon.
Sounds good. I hope you guys have a good time and really enjoy it and learn a whole lot while you're hacking away. So best of luck.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Curtis. Thank you much, Veliswa, for making it to this call. We really appreciate AWS coming on, and we look forward to even partnering in the future.
Great. It's really awesome to be here with you all. Thank you so much for hosting.
Take care,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
take
All the
care.
best.
Bye.
All the best for
Bye-bye.
Israel and Curtis.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy. Bye.
Bye. So for those on the call, our next workshop is Wix Studio, and we'll be starting off by 5 p.m. So Wix is basically going to be taking us through their platform, and yeah. So I think before then we can just be playing music till 5 p.m. So host, you can take it away. Hi, Emmy. So we're going to start off in 5 minutes. We just want to give everyone a chance to join in so that we can, kick off. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. Let me know whenever we're ready.
Okay, great. Host, you can continue the music. Okay, I think we can start off. So welcome everyone to the Week Studio Workshop. We're going to be having Emmy Chow She's a senior developer advocate at Wix Studio. And I'm just going to give a brief bio about Emmy. As a developer advocate at Wix Studio, Emmy supports communities of freelance and agency web developers to help them build sites for clients of all kinds. Right. So I'm just going to be giving Emmy the mic to take over from me and, just tell us about Wix Studio.
Hey, thank you so much for the intro, Afalabi.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be sponsoring this hackathon. We're super stoked to be working with y'all. But yeah, I'll be giving you guys an overview of the Wix Studio platform, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. A lot of developers tell me, like, oh, I remember Wix from 10 years ago or something. You might have made your first website ever on Wix. But it's always just been a really easy way for anybody to put a website on the internet. And I think that is what is really cool. What got me into web development was those really cool, like bad by today's standards, but really fun, silly websites in like the 2000s, 2010s. And I love our mission is to just make that accessible for everybody. So I do have a little presentation, which I know you guys probably have seen a lot of this week. Let me see if I can share with y'all. We
can see
everything
your screen.
cool. Amazing. And hopefully, I don't know why it's so small. I might. Okay, here we go. Cool. So this is an intro to Wix Studio, like I've said. And if you're wondering what is Wix and Wix Studio, I'll go over that in just a minute. But to introduce myself again, I'm Emmy Cow. I am a developer advocate at Wix Studio. This is my third year, or I'm coming into 3 years at Wix, and this is my first job out of college. So it is very exciting for me, and it's been quite a journey. Before that, I worked at some internships at bigger, even bigger companies. So I think big companies is all I've ever really known. And I think Wix has been one of my favorites to work with so far, just because I really love our customers and our users. The community is definitely one of my favorite parts. So what is exactly Wix Studio? So there's a differentiation, to be clear. There's the Wix editor, the regular one that we all know and love, and then there's the Wix Studio editor. And to explain how we came up with this, so Wix Studio just came out last year, so it's quite a new thing. And to preface, our vision as a company is to empower any business, community, or person to create and manage their dreams online. So what we started off with was back in the day. This was one of the first iterations of the Wix editor. It was built on Flash, if any of you guys remember Flash. And it was very slow. It's no longer built on Flash, obviously, but really simple concept that made web design and development accessible to everybody. Like, it was very intuitive. You could drag something and it would just be there. But now we're coming into a day and age where there's just so many more standards for a website, right? Like, you can't just drag things on and expect them to scale to a good size or be completely responsive. So nowadays, there's a lot more regulation and taste and standards in making websites. For example, Are they up to date with SEO standards? Are they up to date with accessibility requirements as well? And these are a lot of things for normal people to think about, but as a professional business, no matter what your experience is with web development, people are going to expect you to comply to those standards. So as a business owner, say after COVID, we all realized that it's not just online businesses that need a website. Pretty much every business has one now. And even if you own a restaurant site, you can't just be like, oh, I'm not a web developer, I don't need to worry about security. It's things that everybody needs to consider. And that's why we built Wix Studio, which is an upgraded form of the editor, which might not be as easy to use as the old Wix editor for just normal people who aren't web devs. But it's really helpful for the people who do want to make their sites professional and up to standard and look really good. And so going into details on the hackathon itself. So number one rule is it must be built on Wix Studio. And I'll show you how you can know, because it is a little bit confusing. So here is my dashboard for Wix. You'll see all of your sites here when you do make one. The way you create a studio site, you go to create new site and studio, blank canvas or template, any of these, just not the use Wix editor. So you always
Okay,
want to.
we can't see your
Oh no.
Yeah. So
Okay. Oh,
yeah, we can see it now.
Can you see it now? Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, so this is where all of your sites live. The way you create a new site is you create a new site and you want any of these options and not this option. So always engage with things, let's say Wix and Wix Studio. So you create a blank canvas and it goes to your site. And now after you make your site, you want to go back into your dashboard and you want to make sure it says built on Wix Studio. And this is extremely important for your submission to be valid. For example, this one doesn't say built on Wix Studio, and it is the regular Wix editor. And to show you guys what the editor itself also looks like here is the studio editor and what it looks like. And here is the regular Wix editor, which as you can see is a little bit different. And I'll go into how the editor works momentarily. But to go over again the rules for your submissions, it must be built on Wix Studio. It must contain at least one page with code. So we write, you can add JavaScript code to Wix Studio sites. And since this is a hackathon, and I'm sure you all entered this event with the intention of learning some kind of code, even though there's a lot that you can do without code, we do expect you to have something, and I'll show you how to add code to your site later. And you get bonus points also for doing full stack code. So that means writing front end and back end code. Ooh, yeah. So we got 3 prizes. So for first place, we got $100, second is $80, and third is $60, all in US dollars. And the design aspect of Wix Studio, it is centered around responsive design. Now, like I was saying earlier, this is not as intuitive for normal people to understand, that you can't just drag everything on and expect it to scale and be responsive. So it's a little bit harder as a learning curve, but in the end, it does pay off. You can also connect your CMS to different front-end site elements, which is really helpful because if you use other platforms, you might have to connect a database or CMS from elsewhere, and then it's always, I don't know about you guys, but it's always a struggle for me to like connect other databases or things to whatever I'm building. There's also a lot of animations that are built in with no code. If you do want to customize them, you can add code, of course. And there are a lot of built-in functionalities like stores, bookings, blogs, and events, and even more. So these things might be hard to build from scratch, but you don't have to build it completely from scratch. So the appeal of Wix Studio, there was a stat that was, it's about 90% of the internet, sites on the internet are built by professionals, not just, like normal people putting up an amateur site. It's all by professionals, which means there is a huge market for freelancers and agencies, which is people who build sites for other people and businesses. And that's a big portion of our clientele is not, big tech web developers, but the freelancers who are building sites for your local businesses, sites for a big or people who outsource like their work and look for outside developers to help them with a site. And that, I think, is also career-wise something that I would highly recommend exploring outside of just looking for corporate dev work. Freelance work is definitely underrated, and if you can sell yourself, market yourself, and build up the skills you need, it's a really profitable line of work. So I'll show you guys a little more of the design aspect of it. So here is my studio site. I'll walk you through the aspects of the editor first. So this is where you add elements. So it does work like the old editor where you can technically drag and drop things, but keep in mind we do want things to be responsive. So let me make a new page real quick. Hello. I'm so bad at naming things when I make like a test page. And yeah, so typically we want to think, if you guys have CSS background, you know that flexboxes, grids are essential for everything. And you have a lot of containers and structure and hierarchy to whatever you're doing. So you can start out with a grid. And this is why we have, so you might be thinking, so if this editor is so much better and up to standard than the other one, why do we have the other one still? Well, it's because if you are a freelancer and you are building a client for like a client site, and the client is like your grandma or something, or someone who's just not familiar with websites at all, it's really intuitive for them to just drag something and see it there. But to have these to have them think about your grids and all of that structure, you can't expect to be like, oh, grandma, I need you to remember that the Flexbox grid is like this size, or the direction will be flipped when we go to mobile, right? And we do have these tablet. This is what your tablet view will look like. This is what your mobile view will look like. So when you are designing, make sure to check all of your views to make sure they are all responsive. And let's go ahead and add some elements to this real quick. Just some heading, and you can see that you don't see the grids, but they do like exist. And you can do things like, this is terrible and ugly, but I am not a designer, and I'm so sorry if you are. Yeah, you can see familiar CSS-esque things like the position type. You can set it to default or sticky to something. You can change the responsive behavior, which is really important. So do you want it, if it's a 200 by 200 pixel image, do you always want it to be fixed as 200 by 200? Do you want it to scale proportionally, do a custom scale? Or if it's like a text, do you want it to wrap to wrap around the container? So that's something to think about. There are a bunch of containers that you can use. I don't like to use the things with the design because I never like them. So I usually just do an empty one. And like if you do want a container inside of your grid as well, you can add one. And if you do CSS, I usually take off like the shadow or whatever it comes with and just make it blank. And if you do CSS, that's like a div, right? And that's how you artificially construct those on a site editor. So if you're working with a client and they're not technically advanced, really, they might have trouble understanding that hierarchy. And the point of the old editor is so that like after you hand off your site to your client and you're like, this is done, please don't mess it up. If they want to add something, and they don't understand how it works, there's a high chance that they could still mess it up. And we just want to be as have some kind of prevention method for that. So here is a text, and here I'll add an image. I realize this is harder to do live than I thought because I don't have a design in mind and I'm just trying to get something on the page. But yeah, so this is a container and this is another element. In CSS, maybe you would have this whole thing as a div, flex that as a column, and then that would be like your grid right here. You can, in Wix Studio, make something called a stack. So like if you have a caption for an image and you just always want this to go with the image, you can do something called stacking, which if you hold Shift and you click these two elements, you can click stack, and this will stack them. You can change how far they are from each other, and that will basically make sure that they're always together in the responsive behavior. So if you don't stack them, sometimes the responsive versions, they will kind of try to guess what you're trying to do based on your layout, and they will rearrange things automatically a little bit if you don't change it. If you stack it, it just makes sure that these two things are always together. And we're going to keep walking through the editor. Here is your layers. Now, if you're a JavaScript developer, this is basically your DOM. This is basically all of your divs and your HTML elements if you were to have an HTML site. And the order in which these appear does correspond to that in the HTML that is generated later on. This is where you'll find all of your pages. You can make new pages as well. And global sections here, like if you have a header and a footer, things that will always appear on your site no matter what. Site styles. So these are global site styles. Before you make your site, it's good to have your styles determined and make sure that is consistent across everything, so that it just makes it easier for you to make sure that your theme is consistent. So in CSS, you might set, for example, the background color primary as black in a variable. It's kind of the same idea. And here you can upload your media to your sites. We also have a lot of like royalty-free images that you can use, which I think for hackathons, it's really nice to not have to worry about like finding good images that are you don't have like terrible watermarks and stuff. What I really like is the transparent videos. Ooh, like these. I think it just adds a lot to your site. Takes a bit. Yeah. So cute. Oh my gosh. Come back to my page. Okay. Here we go. A flower. Oh, just kidding. Oh, he's in this one right now. So yeah, this will play. It doesn't play right now because I'm not in preview. So to preview your site, you go over here. To publish it to live, you go click here. If I just want to go to preview, here is a preview of what my site will look like. If you get into the code, which I will very soon, I promise, here's also the console where you can see all your console logs. And there's nothing right there right now, but there will be very soon. Back to this toolbar, we have next the app market. So if you want to install something like a store functionality, you might go into the app market. There are a lot of official Wix apps like Wix stores, and you'll find them in Wix Business Solutions. And these are all very well integrated with the editor and just really easy to add to your site. This one I don't think we'll need. It's also not loading, so that's okay. I don't think we'll need that anyways. CMS we might need. CMS is pretty cool. This is like your database, and it's really nice because it's right here on your site. You don't have to connect it or anything, so it's super helpful. Can create a collection is how you do it. And this is really cool. If you're building a hackathon site and you just want a bunch of examples, but you don't want to like write them up yourself, you can use AI to do it, which is an incredible use of AI. So for example, let's say you're doing a real estate site and selling properties. So you do properties and then list of homes available for sale in Legos with price, a photo, the realtor name, and that's it. Let's give it like list of 20. and you just give it a moment, and that was really fast, actually. All right, let's see it. And here you go. It did not give me 20. Maybe sometimes the AIs hallucinate as expected, but it does give you like some kind of structure. So if you were just to like test your data and see if it just like shows up properly with this number of things, you don't have to like go up and like keep making up different names for things and try to be creative. So that's a really good use of the CMS. You can also manipulate that into code, which is the next super fun part of this this workshop is code. So we write JavaScript code, JavaScript syntax and we use our own kind of syntax to select Wix elements. It runs on Node, which means you can install certain npm packages if they work with Wix. Not all of them do, so you do have to check. And you can write front-end and back-end code. However, if you do write front-end code, just know that you don't have direct DOM access. So you can't do anything related to like the document window standard JavaScript functions. However, we do have our own way of doing that within Wix. And this is because the way a Wix site works is basically all of your elements get rendered into and compiled into the regular like HTML code. So this the computer or the browser doesn't recognize Wix elements. It's something we kind of made up. So instead of targeting like this, thinking of this as an HTML like H3 element or something, we just think of it as a Wix text element, if that makes sense. So you can't directly modify the DOM in the same way as JavaScript because of the way that the editor is built. But you can still do a lot of those things with our APIs. You can also use CSS to edit elements, and this is a new feature this past year. So if the visual editor doesn't give you enough freedom with like the styling of things, like for example, if I wanted to make this text color a crazy gradient or something, or have some kind of crazy drop shadow, I can't do that here, but you can do that in your code. And the way you add that is you go to global CSS, and this is where you write all of your CSS. You don't have to like define your style like this. Like in other docs, you can just go ahead and write. It does work differently. CSS does work differently in Wix. And the way it works here is that we have everything that you need to add to the element. You have to do it through a class. And there are global classes that you'll see here. So if this is a box, and I do this global class of .box, whatever I do here is going to apply to all boxes on my Wix site, since this is a global CSS file. But for example, if I want to change the CSS of just this box specifically, I can give it a custom class, like my box. And then I can select that here. And then order, big pixel. I forgot the syntax for this, but I think
Okay, sorry, Emmy,
something
we
like
can't
that.
see your
Oh,
screen again.
oh no, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. Okay, okay, cool. So yeah, so sorry, I forgot I have to click the button every time I change tabs. But yeah, so for this box, if I just do dot box, like in this global classes here, it will apply to all boxes. But I can click on this box and give it a custom class that I already made. Now it's called my box, and I can change it like this. And I don't think it showed when I was looking for the CSS file earlier, but this is where you find your page CSS. It's in this code tab and then in the CSS tab. So let's get into the JavaScript part. So in your code, there is something called page code and also backend code, and also you can also make like global code. So this is the master page.js will load on every single page. So if it's something like a footer code, some code you need to run for your footer, that will run on every page. Otherwise, all of your code will be just running on the page that you write it. So see how the page that I'm on my editor corresponds to the code editor right here. That is questions. Okay, that is how the page knows what code to run. And I'm not going to demo this site anymore. Let's check out a more advanced site where I've already written the code. So this is a phone book app where I have right here a form to take in a phone number for a person and their photo. And this is called a repeater, which is a really cool Wix element you can use to do a bunch of repeated elements in the same style. You can connect repeaters and other items to your CMS. So this repeater, it's always a struggle to like select the outermost container if you layer a lot of containers. Yeah, if you click this button, you can connect your Wix element to data. So here I am connecting it to a data set. Let's not connect it right now. So the data disappears. But if I click something like add a data set, you can choose the CMS collection that you've made. And that would add a data set. So what a data set is think of your CMS and your website as two separate things. The data set is the thing that's in between your CMS and your website. So it's what lets your CMS talk to your website so it can give it the data. And why do you need something in the middle to regulate that? It's because, and this goes with all CMSs and databases, it's because you can't just pull data directly straight away from your CMS, because there could be a lot of things related to security that you need to be mindful of. So having an extra layer of protection in the middle to make sure you're only pulling the things you need to your website, and making sure that if you do set something if you do connect data, like is it read only? Is it only the site members can write? Having those permissions set is super important for security and privacy, and you can set that in the dataset settings right there if you did want to change that. So here I have the dataset mode to read and write, and write. And there's another layer of protection on this CMS side. So right here, you can see that the CMS permissions are public. You can change that in permissions and privacy as well if you wanted to like be absolutely sure that you are only sharing what you need to. Okay, so yeah, now that we've connected this repeater to data, we can connect the elements inside to the data in our repeater. So this image doesn't really know what to connect to right now, so you have to connect that manually, and you can just set it to the photo in the properties data set. And it should change unless I don't have any photos in there, which is also possible. Oh, here we go. Yeah, and that should change accordingly based on your elements. And if you do set everything up well, then every time you add to your CMS, it would automatically reflect the changes in your repeater, which is super helpful. And let me demo this app real quick to give you guys an idea of what you can do with code on Wix Studio. So here is, in theory, all of my phone book entries. I can delete these, and if I do click delete, then it should, if it's set up correctly, it might not work right now, but it should delete also from my CMS. And what I also try to do is, like, if you click edit, you can also edit, and that should connect to your CMS. And the way you can do that with code is with our data APIs. But before I get into that, let's do something a little more simple. Let me make a new page, actually. So if you recall earlier, I was talking about how things on Wix, or JavaScript on Wix, is a little bit different from what you might expect. And so if you have used JavaScript a lot before, this w.onReady that comes on every page by default, it's kind of like the window like onReady calls that if you do have DOM access, you would be able to use, but this is how we do it. And this $W is how we select all of our site elements. So here, let's do hello. Hello. All right. And this is a text Wix element. You see the ID right here, and that's super important for calling that in our code. And you want to make sure you name it something that makes sense to you if you do decide to write code for it. So hello text, maybe. And the way you select this is you do $W, and then in the parentheses, the string ID of the element. So in our case, it's hello text. And then you can do dot whatever you need. Here are all of the functions and properties you can access, which you can also, if you don't know, like, since all of the things you can do with different elements are different, for a text element, how do I know what I can do? There is this link right here in the API reference that will take you to the corresponding documentation for that specific element. And this is our docs. This is where you will find everything you need to code on Wix. So as you can see here, like for the text, you can access the HTML inner parts, and you can also do things like check if it's collapsed, on mouse in, and hide and show, and whatever. For a different element, for example, if you have a video element, you would have these things that you can do with it. And so let's do one of the things that we saw, which was the on-click event handler, which you can also add by clicking this, but this will do it in, yeah. Oh. No. I keep missing this plus button, which is embarrassing. There's something you can do, which is also like using the AI assistant to code for you, which I haven't tried, so I can't say that I recommend it right now. But let's go back to our text element, and let's see like the on-click documentation, and it's pretty intuitive, I think. Same syntax as regular JavaScript on-clicks, and then let's also, so on-click, maybe I want it to change the content of the text. So maybe I'll change it to goodbye. So I would have to select it again, select hello text dot text equals goodbye. And this should be simple enough, but let's see if it works just in case. You kind of have to give it a little moment. Hello, goodbye. And there we have it. There's also, let me show you guys the log. You can do console.log, clicked, and preview. And let's expand this developer console. This is where your logs are going to show up if you do test things. And it'll show as clicked in the logs as well. So that's how you do front-end code on Wix, the basics of it anyways. Back to my phone book app, which is a lot more complicated than just this this hello text that we have. Since this does work with data, there is a bit of backend code associated with it. And this is just the page code is basically the front end code. And you'll see that I'm importing create record, delete record, and update record from my backend. And my backend is in backend in public and data.web.js. So to make a backend file, you want to do the .web.js extension, and then this is the syntax, which I'll upload resources on how to export backend functions, but basically the syntax is export const your backend function name, and then this web method part here with your parameters, and this is permissions. So only site members, for example, can call this create record function. And you will, by the way, get bonus points if you do incorporate backend code into your site. And yeah, that is a brief walkthrough of it. There is also this cool VS Code browser editor. So I don't know about you, but I have a small laptop, and sometimes the Wix editor and coding is a little bit slow. So what I can do is I can open up this VS Code editor, and this will have all of my files. So if you're writing a lot of code and you just want it to like look like VS Code, or just have it not in this tiny box over here, which you can expand. I kind of like coding in the editor because I can keep checking like, oh, like this is this element. What did I name it? I named it input first name, and then I can refer to that in my code. But if you're writing a lot of backend code, for example, then you can open this VS Code editor and just like go crazy in the full editor without the lag of having all of this open. Which brings up another point. How do we collaborate, since this is a hackathon and we're working as a team? So on Wix Studio, you should be able to collaborate with other people. It'll show up here, and this is just to indicate that I have the Wix IDE open. You do want to be careful if you are editing at the same time. It's not like Google Docs where you can see where someone's mouse is, but if someone adds something while I'm working, it'll just show up. So you do have to coordinate a little bit. Maybe I would recommend like working in a separate page for all of your team members and then later combining everything. The same is with this VS Code editor. So technically you can have two people editing at the same exact time, but it won't be, yeah, like I said earlier, it won't be like Google Docs where you can see what they're typing live. There will be a little bit of lag associated to it. And if you're just working on the same page, it might be a little bit annoying. And you'll also have to deal with what is, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like Git and version control, but you'll also have to deal with a lot of merge conflicts, which is really annoying to resolve in real time. So I would recommend just everybody like making their own page to like practice and work with, and then later you can see how you can combine everybody's code and everybody's like edits to one thing together. There is also like, if you wanted to have real version control, you can connect basically this by using the GitHub command line interface. You can pull all of this code to your local VS Code editor. So I'm so sorry, I keep forgetting that I have to change my tab that I'm sharing, but this is the in-browser VS Code editor that I was talking about. You can work together, but I would highly recommend just having a different page and everybody working on a different page. And you can find your backend file here. Here's my data.web.js. So this editor is really useful for if you're writing a lot of code and you just want to not see all. Okay.
Okay, yeah, so about yeah.
Cool. Oh, good. No worries. Yeah, so I'll continue where we left off, I guess. So we went over how we can collaborate, and that's about it, really. There are a lot of resources that you can use. Before that, I want to mention that if you do really like the Wix Studio platform, we have another online hackathon that's run by us. The prompt is you can either make a reusable block, which is like a widget that you can sell to other people who use Wix Studio, or you can make a Wix Studio site template that uses code. And we have over $20,000 in USD of prizes. And every week in our Discord server, in this QR code, we're selecting 2 people who help other hackers the most to win $200 USD just by participating and like hanging out and answering questions. So definitely check it out if you're interested. Yeah, that's it. For some reason, oh, here we go. Good luck, everybody, and I'll be in the Discord if you guys have questions. I put together this resources doc for you guys that I will also drop in the Discord. And this is just a lot of links if you want to know where to get started, because it is a lot of information, I realize. Within that, there is also this Velo examples page, which is really, really helpful just to show you all the things that you can do.
We're still seeing your ID.
Oh no. Okay.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for always reminding me. I keep forgetting. Yeah. But yeah, so this is the Velo examples page. It's super helpful if you just want to see like how something is done. And these are all selected by us. So it is all like the recommended things that you do. And you can go and just like see the code snippets down here. You can view the example and see the live example, or you can also click edit now and it will open what the editor looks like for them as basically like a template. And so that's a really cool one. But yeah, here it is like the link for that I linked in the presentation. Just a lot of resources that might help you in your dev journey. And I think that is all I have before time runs out. If you guys have any questions, you can ask it in the chat or in the Discord and I'll get back to you later. But thank you guys so much for having me, and I wish you all the best of luck in your hacking.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmy. I mean, this has been an amazing 1 hour, going through the Wix Studio platform. I personally use Wix, the main editor.
Really?
Yeah. I think my first
That's
2
awesome.
websites were with Wix, right?
I
The
love
first one,
that.
I created a blogging site, and then the second one, I created a hair selling website for my sister. So I think like
That's
I
sweet.
personally even tuned to Wix a lot. So I'm very happy to have been on this call too. And also our hackathon participants and attendees are on the YouTube. So they're also very happy to have seen this. And I think the documents you shared would also be shared with them on Discord so that they'll be able to access that. So that's really great. Yeah, and if anybody has any further questions, we'll just pass that along to you. And yeah, thank you very much for accepting,
of course,
Dave and Dee, on this workshop call. And yeah, we look forward to the amazing projects that our participants would build with Wix Studio.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, thank you so much, Afolabi, and yeah, best of luck with the event.
Yeah, best of luck.
All right, I'll drop now. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Okay, so that is our last workshop of the day. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our workshops. We've had Tublian, we've had if you want to see any of the workshops, workshop 1, which was on day 2, was Tublian and Paystack, and workshop 2 today. Workshop 2 was Tublian and Paystack, and workshop 3 today was AWS and Wix Studio. And we had our mentorship session with our previous hackathon winner on Wednesday, right? So you can go and check that if you have any questions about that. Also, you can also drop it in the Discord. So I think to be signing off here on our workshop, from next week Monday, that is the official building period. From next week Monday, from tomorrow to next week Monday. So you have 5 days to build your projects on Paystack, on AWS and on Wix Studio, right? So if you're building an AI solution, you're going to probably build it on AWS Bedrock, and the foundational models like Llama, Claude, and all the other models they have there. And you could also integrate Amazon Q Developer in your IDE, right? So that can help you, answer questions about code or optimize your code. And you can submit. If you're building an AI solution, you would have to submit on our Tublian platform, right? So Tublian is where all AI submissions will be submitted. So you just sign up to the Tublian platform, go to the challenges module, and join the challenge for Tublian AI Hack Challenge. And you'd be able to, once you're done with your project, you'll be able to submit on the Tublian platform. But if you're building anything else that is not AI, right, we would have a form for you to submit that. And with Wix, we would also have, with Wix Studio, we also have another form for you to submit your project. So I think thank you everybody for coming to the 3 days of workshop, and we look forward to seeing what you build from tomorrow till Wednesday next week. Also, we're having our last mentorship session tomorrow, same time, with some of our previous hackathon winners, and we're also going to be answering questions that everybody has on the hackathon, on the different toolings and technologies that we have from our partners. And yeah, so good luck to everybody in the hackathon, and have a great weekend. Hosts, music.